Okay, here is a video on how to incorporate a maintenance reserve funding, a maintenance reserve account in a project finance model. Can be one of those most painful uh, uh, items to incorporate from a mechanical standpoint. Here's what we have. We have some inverters. We talked about that in the depreciation video if you watched that, but we have some uh, uh, inverters, and then we're going to put those inverters, just a minute, and under the operating cost section, here's the cost of the inverters. In the base case, we replace it 15 years, in the low case, 8 years, and we have 2 replacements. In the high case, there's no inverter replacement. And what we would like to do is set up a reserve account to account for the fact that we're going to have to replace these inverters, and we're going to have to replace them with an inflated cost. Now, there are a few steps to do this. Step number 1 is just to figure out when the replacement is going to occur. I think I have done this, but I better do this again. So what I would do is go to this was the financial and tax section of the model. Go to the next step, the next part of the model where we compute our EBITDA and our capital expenditures. Now, part of the capital expenditures is the replacement of inverters. The big trick to getting the first trick to getting the replacement of inverters is to put the period of the replacement in. Now I'm going to do that again. Here's what you do. What I use, I just used a match function, and I match the date in the model with the series of replacement inverter dates. If you can help me find that, that's here. And then I put this is very important, then you put a 0 to get an exact match. That leaves NAs in all of the periods except for the periods of the inverter replacement. And then I'll put an F4 on this. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a data validation and put period of inverter replacement. And then I'm going to tell you that use the match function with a 0. All right, and then we can copy that across. So that's step number 1. Then we can get the expenditures. Now, what I did this should be expenditure without inflation. Now, we could have also put the expenditures in right next door to the dates up here. Let's say in fact, maybe I'll do that. Let's put an expenditure up here, and let's say this expenditure was 0.9 of the base, because we say the world is getting a little more efficient, productive. Things should go down in real terms. In your life, you should get more productive over time. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe the real cost increases. So here we put without inflation a different value in. Now, if we want to then incorporate those 2 different values into where I went too far, into the replacement of inverters, I think we can use exactly the same thing. Why don't we just put a index? I said, let's put an index on the inverter here. We'll put an index. So this is the famous brotherly love of the match and the index. We get NAs for all the periods, except when we finally have an inverter replacement. Look over there. We have the first one, 462, and why don't I put the low case where we'll have 2. We have one inverter replacement here, and a next one here. Now in the high case, we better double check something. In the high case, we might have an inverter replacement. Is there one after the, there's one after the model is finished. So why don't we fix this, and let's just put an if statement and only do this after the period of operation, which of course will exclude the periods of retirements. Okay, so when, oops, oh shoot, what did I do? If, and for, oh then, okay. And then it still gives us our NAs, and let's put it back to the base case, and we'll put our inverter replacement in it. Okay, step 1. Finally, I just repeated the inflation index. That's too boring to go over, and I multiplied the inflation index by the inflated inverter replacement, and I'm just putting an F air on there. So if it's, I hope, did I do that? I hope we have one inverter replacement in the base case. And our total expenditures are going to be the, we better, this I didn't tell you that, but this was stated in USD per kilowatt. So we take the inflated expenditure, and then we better multiply it by the, do we have the kilowatts of capacity here somewhere? I think I put the kilowatts of capacity. We should have done this right at the very start. Here's our kilowatts of capacity. And then since it's USD per kilowatt times kilowatts, and we want it in USD thousands, we better just divide it by 1,000, and we have this is the total expenditure we made for our inverter replacement. If you can imagine, if you have multiple different resurfacing of roads, or in our case, in the low case, we could have had a multiple expenditures. Here we have one expenditure there and another there. Okay, that's step 1. Key to that step is the match and index, our famous brothers. Now after we do this, then we have the painful part. That was the easy part. The painful part is to go and find how much you have to put into the maintenance reserve account. And what we're going to have to do is look ahead. We're going to have to start in period 0. When we start operation of the project, we're going to have to put an account together that puts 270.32 into an account, and then we're going to also have to look ahead and start another account in the next period and put it over here. Now, if you have periods, if you have resurfacing that occurs in different periods, that can be a little bit of a pain. So here's the rule for the next one. The rule for the next one to put the next one. What I mean is the rule for making, there's no rule. What a stupid thing to say. Here's what you can do for setting up the reserve accounts. I would do this after the depreciation, before the debt funding. Here's why it's so crucial to put it before the debt funding. if you're going to use sculpting of debt, part of the analysis of the sculpting of the debt, let's go to our debt schedule, where I put CFADS for the sculpted debt repayment. So far we have EBITDA minus taxes minus capex plus interest income. You know what we're going to have to do is somewhere right here, I put it here, is we're also going to have to put less the funding. I'll put funding, F-U-N-D-I-N-G, of the MRA account. Okay, we're going to put in how much we have to contribute to that. That should be subtracted from our DSRA, and so we need that for our funding calculation. So when we put the model together, I think we better put it before the debt schedule, and let's do it before the whole funding analysis. So let's put MRA. Why don't we just call this MRA funding? I'll just put maintenance MA reserve accounts. And how did I do it here? Okay, I'm gonna make it a oh no, make it the same format as our other titles. And now let's just set it up. So the first thing we really have to do is decide how much our funding is going to be. It might be a good idea to first put in I'll call this extraordinary maintenance. Oh, come on. Extraordinary maintenance expenditures. And then once we have that, we can put the subsequent period maintenance expenditure. This is the big problem. We have to look ahead. Now we can look ahead. We can use the offset function to look ahead. I believe we can also simply use the index function again. Hopefully we'll show you both. And then perhaps the most difficult part is finding the periods to the next expenditure. Now the reason we need that is once we have the subsequent expenditure and take the periods to the next expenditure, then we can put required maintenance, how about MRA funding? This is going to be the hard one. Now to get this one, let's say this is 20 periods. So let's say this is 100 and this is 20. You take the 100 divided by the 20, put 5 in each period. I think what we need is a maintenance. Why don't we put maintenance period? So this if it's the very first maintenance period, let's start it at the COD, and then we'll start the next one at the next maintenance period date. And why don't we put the let's put the new maintenance expenditure period or COD. We're going to make a little counter variable that gets this. And let's just say how to do this. This will be a test with expenditure period. This one will be a counter from the last period. that works. And then the period to the next expenditure. To do this, we'll have a count if. So here's the way I hope it can work. Let's say it's the COD. That's a true. We start counting. If it's true, then we put it, our counter back to 1. Otherwise, we take the last period plus 1. For the maintenance period, we do counter, and this is just, sorry about this. This is a true or false. This is a counter that just keeps incrementing. While I'm saying this, I'm worried about the construction period, by the way. And the count if, that's the little trick. We can do a count if you're on the number 1. We can just count if all the number 1s, and then all the number 2s, and then all the number 3s. That's the trick. Now, there's 5 or 6 different ways to do this. Maybe this isn't the best way, but then we can put our MRA balance, and we can let's put our opening balance, and let's add the MRA funding, and subtract the expenditures, and get a closing balance. And we better test that maybe we can put some kind of test in here. Our closing balance better be 0 at the very end. And then we can also put our interest, income, rate. We'll put a periodic. And then let's put our interest, income, amount. Okay. So why don't we try some of this? Our extraordinary maintenance expenditures are up here. Where did we just did that? You remember we did this. I hope you remember that. That was what we just did before. Shift Control 1 to get the formatting. Now, to get the next period expenditures, I think what we can do is just use an index function. And this time, oops. Hang on. We want the index function on the next date. We want to find the next period. We need, we're going to need a match. Excuse me for this. Sorry about that. Oh, shoot. Match. Oh, look, it switched to French. Good. A match of next period using 1 as code. Okay. Let's first use a match function. I'm going to match the date against, this time, remember we go up to our maintenance expenditures. Hopefully that's clear. But this time, last time we did it here, if we want to go to the next period, we'll first do the same thing. Let's match this. That's the F4 button. Got an NA here. This time we have 1. This is 1, and then they're all 1s, and then we have a 2. Now what we would like to do is, for any period starting at the commercial operation date, we want to adjust this match function, and if it's the operating period, we'd like to start here. This is the commercial operation date. If I could get a 1 in here, and then start and get a 2 in here, then we could use the index function and just take the subsequent periods. So why don't, I'm going to change this. So I'm going to say, let's first put if this is the operating period, we don't want to do anything for the construction period. So if it's the operating period, then we can take match plus 1. Okay, how's that? We get false before the operating period, and then unfortunately we get our NAs, and then it goes to 2. So I'm gonna, this is a crude, horrible method, but maybe right here, let's put an if error, and then put a 1 in there. Did that work? Shoot. What did I do wrong here? If error match. Oh, come on. Match plus 1. I think I need another bracket here. That's a little embarrassing. Okay. Here now we finally have our 1 and our 2. What a pain. Okay. Now once we have that, we now finally, this was the real pain. We can get the index, just our old match in the index in a little more sophisticated way, but take our match in the index, and this time we shade this, and since we've adjusted the match, oops, we get a value. Don't worry about the values, of course. Then it goes and puts the future expenditure in, and then we have some references and all that. Let's just fix that whole thing with the if error. I'm trying to make a video now. What are you doing?
Stealing batteries.
Oh, God. Okay. Now we have...
I don't care if you're trying to make a video. No, you know what? I don't care if you're trying to make a video. You know why? Because anytime I tried to make a YouTube video, you know what you did? Came out and said, "Hey, Tristan! Hey, Tristan!" Fuck off.
Okay. Sorry about the interruption. I'm not going to stop this one. Now we can make the maintenance expenditure period, which I think we already have. We have the 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So I'm going to, when I say match of next period using 1 as a code, this is the maintenance expenditure period. Okay. And let's delete that. Now this is the, I think, a nice trick, but there are probably 10 different ways to do this. What if we do a count if, and we just first put the count if on the maintenance expenditure period, and then also just click on the entire row like that, and then oh shoot, it's supposed to count how many times we hit a number 1 and number 2. What did I do wrong? Count if, that one, count how many times it's false. Who cares about that? It's supposed to count if it's 1. Aha. I did the famous backwards problem. We have to first count the expenditures and then do it this way. We have 82 periods where it's false. We have 16 periods when it's true. And then we have 82 when it's false. Now, why don't we put a little if statement just to get rid of those horrible little things here, so we can just correct that, and we have 16 periods for both of the next ones. So finally, then we can have the, this is the counter. finally we can have the expenditure funding, which is simply, as long as this one's true, then we can take our next period expenditure and divide that by the number of expenditures. So now we have, now we have our total expenditure, our future expenditures. And I did one thing which was criminal. I didn't multiply the expenditures by the inflation rate. Excuse me for that. Made that mistake again on purpose so you could just see the oops, my dog's barking, excuse me. Okay, so let's put our balance together. Let's say our opening balance equals our closing balance, and let's add the maintenance funding, and let's take away the maintenance expenditures. Did I also, shoot, I also have to multiply this by the capacity of the project. Shoot. To multiply this by the capacity of the project, you know, it should be the future capacity divided by 1,000. Let me just finish this thing here before we fix that. So our closing balance is our opening balance plus the MRA funding minus the expenditures. Let's see what happens here. Okay, and I obviously did something wrong. We put in our expenditures, 1408, and then it looks like I missed it by something. Here's our required funding, and I missed it by 5, and then I missed it by 48. Now here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna yeah, let's fix this. Let's fix this whole thing. I think that the right thing to do would have been to, up next to the expenditures, instead of doing all this inflation thing, we should have been very clear. This is the cost per kW, and then why don't we put the period here? And it's, I suppose, maybe good practice for this. Let's put a match of the period against the all of the periods. So I'm just going to put the start period. I'm going to put a 0 here. Okay, oops. In this case, why didn't that, oops, of course. Okay, should have done F4. So that's the 57th period. Let's put the capacity at the period. Capacity in kW, I hope. So use our friends, the index, and go down and find the capacity of the project at that period, and then we combine it with the match. And let's not make the same mistake again. So maybe this whole thing is just a lesson in using match and index a whole bunch. Okay, let's press the F4 and get this. Why? Uh-oh. this should have been, we should have done the capacity after degradation. Okay, well, let's continue, and then we can put the inflation index here, and let's do the same thing. So we can use our index and match again. The index finds the inflation rate. I'm a little bit deflated because I've made quite a bit of mistakes on this video. That's why I hate making these videos. But let's get the inflation index, F4, and associate that with the match. Here's our inflation index for the two, and then we can have cost in USD thousands. That's we better take our cost per kW, multiply it by the kW, multiply it by the inflation index, and divide by 1000 because it's in thousands. Shift Control 1, Control D. Okay, that's our number. Now I'm going to go and fix all those little adjustments I made. So when we use the subsequent period inflation, let's not put all those adjustments here, and instead let's use the index of the number we just computed. All right, that's this one, F4, and I hope that worked. There's our new value. Now when we do the closing balance, I still have a damn problem. Let me see. So how many? 17.7. So let's just, if we sum all of these, MRA funding, we put this in for this month, which it was 269.65. Can somebody tell me why that didn't work? And then, oops, this 270 is the problem. What mistake did I make here? Let's find out what our problem is here. We have 268. Well, here's what I'm doing. I'm stopping the video. I'm going to fix it myself. I'm sick of this. Video's lasted a whole half an hour already. Goodbye.